Hello, everybody. Once again, I am Lehman Crafton Jr., aka Zorval Chan Less Than Guru, and this is Mars, Video Cat, who always decides to come and be in most of my videos. Not every single one, but most of them. So he'll be here for a little while until he gets bored, and then he will leave. Basically, today I wanted to do a topic that came up because it's currently what I am going through between campaigns, the end of one campaign, one game system, and the beginning of another campaign and another gaming system. So, as any of you who've watched any of my videos probably know, on Fridays and Sundays I was running toward eternity for my two home groups. Home meaning it's the groups that I've played with for decades, and since we've moved away from each other and live in different cities and different states, we still meet weekly on the internet. So we use Roll20. It's not a plug for Roll20, but that's what the tabletop we use. I discovered it many years ago and have just gotten accustomed to it, so that's why we use it. Basically, everybody knows how it works in the group. But putting that aside, that's why I call it my home group, even though we don't physically meet in person. Hopefully, one of the groups, once the pandemic settles down, we'll be able to meet in person every once in a while. But right now, everything is virtual. And I was running two Org Eternity games. And then I volunteered to run a to organized play uh, series through Blood on the Blasted Lands, the Tharkold Mega Adventure. So having three Torg basically games going on was a little too much for me to handle personally. Plus, I do freelance writing for Torg Eternity, and I have a day job, so it basically became a little too much. How Michael Roderick can do everything every day and to organize play and game master and have games and set up stuff. I have mad respect for that because that would just be overwhelming. So basically, what I did is also I have had differences of opinion. Not necessarily that I'm conflicting with each other, but when a new game system comes out, and I'm always advocating making the game your own. So when Torg Eternity came out, there were things that I liked old Torg better, the original Torg better, and there were things that I liked Torg Eternity better, and I kind of made some knee-jerk reactions for some things, and some things I still agree with, and other things I found that my knee-jerk reaction was completely wrong. Or some things where it's just kind of I see these two ways of doing things as both valid. One's official, the other one's not. Um, is it worth changing or not? Stuff like that. So by playing at least one of my home groups for over 3 years now, I believe, with Org Eternity, I have had things going in my ideas, populating in my head, making me wonder if certain things that I was using house rules or official rules were things that I really thought were beneficial to my personal group. And also, as some of you might know, I right when Torg Eternity first released, when it was just the core rules, I came up with a supplement on the Infiniverse exchange called the Paraverse, which was kind of a taking some original Torg, taking Torg Eternity, and making a separate Cosmverse that people could use any of the rules in there that they wanted, the setting if they wanted, perks, spells, miracles, psionic powers, etc. Things if they wanted to use, they could pick and choose. If they wanted to take it whole cloth, they could do it that way. And since now we have every realm released to at least crowdfunders, backers, up to sort of Rorsch. It's in the preview state, so there's some changes that usually happen between preview and actual release. So that's kind of halfway there, and Pan Pacifica, but every other realm has been released. So there is a lot more information now on what those realms were, and some of them fit well with my Paraverse, some didn't, and I didn't want to go realm by realm, cosm by cosm. for the Paraverse, I wanted to wait until all of that information was out and then kind of collect it, kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And again, I've had some other thoughts of myself, both by playing Torganized Play as well as remembering about old Torg. Certain things that I thought would be important ended up not being important or bogging down the game. So how do I make the game faster, not just add rules to add rules, or to be or at least with the thought in mind that anything that I add will have to be remembered and have to be utilized in a game, so that can take up more time. And if it's worth it, fine, but if it's not worth it, maybe that's not needed. So those are a bunch of ideas and thoughts going through my head. So I wanted to kind of stop that game. The characters were around 105 experience points, so they were pretty advanced beta, halfway to gamma, and I just wanted to kind of take a break and do also a more old school type game. So we started the Palladium Ninter Veil, which hopefully will have enough people tomorrow to play and record and put that up on the channel. But so that game I kind of wrapped up. We got to the end of Relics of Power Redux, and I think that went really well. And then on my Friday game, again, I got to a point, the characters were only about 40 XP into it. They got through unhallowed data. They finished the last act yesterday night. And um, I wanted to kind of put a hold on things to figure out, do I want to introduce that group to some of my new ideas and rules and stuff like that. But I also want it to play. So sometimes one game will get kind of put on the shelf. We got to an ending point, but I don't necessarily want to retire these characters yet. The other group, I did retire those characters. But this group, I didn't really want to retire. I just wanted to do something else. So we're going to do Earth Dawn 4th Edition. Most of the people there have liked Earth Dawn. We played 1st Edition with another group that has some of the same people. We played 2nd Edition and like that, although apparently a lot of people don't like 2nd Edition. I don't see too much of a difference between 1st and 2nd, or even 3rd. 4th is kind of basically the same thing, except for they add a little more options, which I personally enjoyed. So that's basically, we're going to start Earth Dawn the next time, and I'm still doing Toward Eternity, doing my Blood on the Blasted Lands, and once that's done, then I might bring one of the other ones back, or still have my random unsung heroes that I do. So I'm not in any way, shape, or form like pushing Toward Eternity to the side. It's just I need to do a game master refresh and recoup, and do less type planning out things and manage my time a little better. Basically that. But this whole thing of, putting some games away or putting on the back burner and bringing up new stuff, especially what happened last night and the end of Unhallowed Data, made me think about stuff that maybe you as gamers have encountered, and maybe think about how you could do things, learn from any mistakes that I might have made, or be inspired by what I did. Um, or not, probably not. I wouldn't be inspired by what I did. I would be like, oh, okay, hold on. But basically, what happened is, I'll try to not have spoilers, but they went through this mega adventure, 7 acts. Each act is usually about 5 scenes in the mega adventures for Torg Eternity, and they got to a point with the last act. They were at the beginning. They were kind of the ending of Act 6 and the start of Act 7. I'll say that there was and I'm not doing a pun, but kind of a disconnect. Not in the reality you get disconnected in Toward Eternity, but as all the information that you've gotten pre Act 7, it kind of stops, and then there's a little waiting game. You summarize the waiting game, but there's a little wait before things start again, plot wise. So when the plot kind of picked up again, when we got through you're waiting, and this is what you're seeing when you're waiting, and figuring out stuff, and my players were doing a pretty good job of deciding what they were going to do within that little break of time. Game game time, not real time. They did pretty well, and then they met somebody in it, and I do change things all the time. Any adventure, even adventures I write, if I'm doing it for my home group, I will add stuff. I will change stuff because sometimes to that particular table, it might be beneficial to change something or to add something or subtract something. And so always do that. Don't think that you have to go through an adventure step by step. These aren't a paint by number thing or connect the dots. It's just a more or less tries to be a complete toolbox or a game master to use. But anytime you do a job or you have a toolbox, maybe there's something that you don't have in that toolbox and you have to go buy another tool to put into it, or you don't use everything in the toolbox. So that's kind of a way to look at things. So we got to the last act, and there are certain parts in it that the party had done so well beforehand, establishing a certain way that they were playing and how they were doing things, that there were things that they kind of were able to skip over. And it was a logical skip. It wasn't just me going, I don't want to do this. It was they kind of preempted these things. So I'll give an example. I'll try to be vague again because I don't want to give spoilers. This is while it's been around for the backers in digital form for a while, it's only been maybe what 6 to 8 months maybe in physical form, and that's maybe just for the backers also. I'm not sure how long it's been to the general public, so I'll try to keep it spoiler free. But there's a point where the players have to go somewhere and they have to obtain something that they will use later, and then they leave, but that getting in there and obtaining it could be a huge, big fight with tons of bad enemies and threats, and they need to go in and they need to bring it out. Well, they had kept a certain thing throughout the entire adventure that helped them during this, and they didn't do things that would make it so that they lost those privileges, I'll say. So when they got in, they were able to get in. And the problem and the thing that I was thinking is they're going to have a tough time getting out because they have the credentials to get in. Just walk in and say, here's my credentials, get in. But getting out with something would be very hard for them to do. But one of the players actually had his character go talk with somebody in there, explained a half truth situation, one of those where if you base a lie on a half truth, it's easier to accept than if you just do a complete lie. He kind of did that type of thing and rolled very well on his persuasion test. And it's one of those things where I don't always agree that if you roll, say, in a D&D game, a natural 20, you should always win, because sometimes, no, that person is never going to let you do that thing. No matter how good you roll, they are dead set against it. Well, with this group, they had credentials that gave them a higher position. They made a good story, so it was feasible. It was very much like, and I'll say this, if anybody's ever worked retail or at fast food or something like that, sometimes there are people from the head corporation that will come and they will inspect your store. But the thing is that con artists know that. So sometimes people will pretend to be those high corporate individuals and come in to inspect a store and end up stealing something. And that's basically what this group, the store knights, did. So they were able to get this thing and they were able to get out without any fight whatsoever. The scene went pretty well. They figured out some stuff to help them even more and took care of that. And then we get to the very last scene of the entire thing, which is this really difficult fight. A very difficult fight. A very difficult fight. A fight that if I would have done it as in here, we would probably still be playing now. The fight was probably at least 3 hours when I called it. It was just because the players weren't doing bad enough to die, but weren't doing good enough to take out any of the enemies. They actually took out. There was 4 enemies. They had eight or seven. Sorry, one player couldn't make it. 7 Storm Knights. My group, that group, usually 8 players when it's full. There were 7 of them, and they were 7 Storm Knights against 4 enemies. 2 of them being pretty decent, one of the enemies being super powerful, and another enemy being pretty powerful. And they took out the pretty powerful enemy first, and then the two were just doing really well, and they're rolling and not getting hit and doing enough damage to the party to be taking away their resources and stuff like that. And it just started dragging on. And normally in Torg, a quick scene, in my opinion, in my experience, which is it's not always the case, is usually say between 4 to 5 turns. So card flips, if you know what Torg eternity is. So four to 5 rounds, something really easy. We're going to get 3 to 4 and more difficult. And this one was getting up towards 10 and 11 turn. And it got to the point where I looked up at the clock and it was 15 minutes over when we normally shut down for the night. And I basically asked my players, I said, okay, we can do 2 things. We can stop the game here. And that is one good thing about tabletop online that I love, is that you can just leave and you don't have to worry about keeping your kitchen table or your gaming table there and ready for the next time, or collecting stuff and then having to remember where stuff was. You just turn off the virtual tabletop you're on and you come back the next time and it's there ready to go as if you never left. So that is one thing I love about tabletop and over in person. If there's a lot of pros for being in person, that is the one big pro, in my opinion, for tabletop. But we got to a point where it's like, we can stop. In 2 weeks, we can resume and spend our 5-hour gaming session going through this and the end, or we can assume you as Storm Knights win, and I can narrate what happened. And you get to that point where, even though everybody loves Torg Eternity in my group, everybody wants to play Torg Eternity in my group, I like game mastering Torg Eternity. I just need a break. There's a point where everybody knows it's kind of at the end, and you kind of get excited for the new thing coming, the new shiny Earth Dawn. Ooh, Earth Dawn's, we're going to be making character, or some of us have made characters, other ones are in the process of making characters, but that's going to be the new thing. And you get to that point where, are we going to just push this one to the side and get it over with quick so that we can, put the break there and then move on? And that's what they decided. And that's something that some people might not like. And I don't really enjoy it. I've done it a few times when I've ended games where it's just kind of like got to the point where it's like, let's just end it. We had a point where one character came really close to dying twice. Used lots of resources to live the first time and then got hit really hard a couple rounds later and almost died again. Used another powerful resource to get past that. So yes, I could have dragged it out. I could have maybe killed 1 or 2 characters. Would have been possible. So by stopping and just doing a narrative to end the game, yes, all the Storm Knights lived instead of some of the Storm Knights maybe have dying. But was that them dying necessary? And that's one of the things that when I go through a more new school type game like this, the plot and narrative, in my opinion, is a little more important than if you've watched any of my other videos where I'm talking about combat and battle, where it pretty much, yes, if I was going old school, we would be playing this the next time. We would be going through to make sure that they absolutely earned their win. But with this being more of a narrative game, I didn't think that was needed. And again, you're stopping this, you're going to something new, new. And so everybody agreed, or nobody at least told otherwise, when most of the people agreed and were like, yeah, just narrate to the end, narrated, then everybody figured out what those couple of loose ends were, and we're very happy, and we ended on a good note. And it didn't seem like anybody at all was upset that we didn't just keep fighting round after round in 2 weeks. But let me know in the comments. Do you think that is cheating the group, the experience at the table, to just wrap something up fast because your time limit is you? There was nothing saying in 2 weeks we have to start Earth Dawn. The thing between me as a game master of Torg and the other player who's going to be the game master of Earth Dawn was basically once Torg Eternity is done, then you start. And there was no, it has to be on such and such date. Or do you think that it's fine to just narrative, do a narrative and wrap things up, let all the Storm Knights live, let them win, because they had went through the whole rest of the evening very fast. They were getting through things very fast. They were not just they were doing lots of thinking and making correct, good decisions, in my opinion, that led to a lot of things them being to override or bypass without much error because of the forethought and the just ideas that they were coming up with on their own that I thought was very, very good. Like that situation where they got in, I'm like, oh, they got in, but they're going to have to fight their way out. And then the other character, without me doing anything at all, without no, oh, make a perception roll, make a or find roll, make a evidence analysis roll. It's just he came up with a plan and implemented it, and it made really good sense. And then they were able to leave. So um, it gets to the point where then is combat taking too long? Can you just wrap up combat? And my opinion at this moment, which can change at any time, was for this mega adventure on Data being a more plot driven thing where it's a mega adventure, it's a story arc, a plot line. It's not an open sandbox in the fact that it's not just players do what they want to do. If it would have been players do what they want to do and they would have go, okay, we want to go up against the BBEG at the end and fight, then I would have drug it out because that's what they chose to do. And these, while we as authors try very hard not to make it railroady on rails the entire time, these do have to be, you go from point A to B to C to D to E, and you get to F, and then you complete the game. While you're going there, they might not be straight lines, they might be little different ways, or 3 lines to get to the same place, but these are more plots. You start off at a point and you get a plot, and you might learn or plot things might drop or get fulfilled, and then a new thing pops up, but it's an overarching story line. Whereas in other more old school games, it's just this is what you're doing at this time. So leave a comment what you think. Do you think that I cheated my players? Do you think that it's fine? Do you think that in new school, like what I'm thinking, it might be fine if everybody agrees with it and you're everybody understands this is going to be the last thing? Do we want to drag it off on the next week? If they would have said no, we want to do it next week too, we want to get through this fight, then I would have done it. But people were getting tired. We were normally stop at midnight, and it was 12:15, and people were getting tired. And yeah, people were getting tired, and I gave them the option. So, do you think that was basically okay to do? Do you think that it wasn't okay to do? Right in the middle. So basically, that's just kind of thoughts that I was thinking and decided to make a video that when you end campaign, sometimes it's really clear cut and the time works perfect and you get to the end and you're able to resolve it and you're able to wrap it up. But I've also noticed in Torg Eternity Organized Play, sometimes that happens too. You have maybe like a 4-hour block that you're trying to get through a Delphi Council mission, and you get to the point where the beginning, you as players are taking a lot of time to get going and get going, and then once you get to the big bad end guy, you're looking up at the clock or looking at your watch, and it's a point where it's like we got to wrap things up. So maybe the game master makes the opponent a little less, or maybe you get to a point like I got to that it's like, oh, they're the Storm Knights are going to win. So why are we continuing? Why can't we just stop and move on? But when you get to the big bad end guy, is that cheating? Is that getting past an adventure without fully doing it? How do you do something where you can speed up the beginning and get to the end and do the end fully instead of having the big full setup and then the quick rush to the end because of time limits? So let me know, what are your ideas about time limits at the end? Do you postpone it to the next session? If you are in a type of either con game or a scheduled game that is only X many hours and you're getting to the end, what are things that you do for time management when you get to the end? You speed things up. You let it go easier. Um, it's hard on virtual tabletops because the rules are there on screen, but you have your game master screens. Do you fudge dice? Do you let the enemies die early because you're on time? Do you think that that is depriving the players of a good experience because you rush the ending? You rush to the beginning instead so that you can get to the end. So give me your thoughts and ideas and stuff like that. But that's just something that happened to me last night. So I wanted to bring that up to you, and hopefully tomorrow we will get a playthrough for my second session of Palladium very heavily homebrewed. And that is my timer, so I am going to eat now. So until next time, I will catch you later. Bye.